I thought we had the perfect marriage, the perfect home, the perfect life in a quiet Massachusetts suburb. Then one ordinary Tuesday, a single piece of mail arrived that wasn't just a bill. It was a detonator. It revealed a secret life my wife was living. A deception so profound it went far beyond simple betrayal. This wasn't about another person. This was a calculated financial crime investigation that began in my own home, with the woman I loved as the prime suspect. She thought her charm and my trust were the perfect cover for her scheme. She underestimated me. She never imagined that the quiet, loving husband she was bleeding dry was capable of becoming her worst nightmare. How do you get justice when the person who ruined you is sleeping in your bed? You don't just leave. You meticulously dismantle their entire world. You have to hear how this ends to believe it. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, go ahead and give it a like. It really helps me out. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks a bunch. The letter that ended my marriage didn't arrive with a bang. It came on a Tuesday, tucked between a pizza coupon and a catalog for lawn furniture. It was the envelope that caught my eye. Thick, cream-colored cardstock with the embossed logo of a bank I'd never heard of. Blackwood Financial Trust. It was addressed to both of us, to me, Mark, and my wife, Alara. But her name was first. I remember standing there in the foyer of our home in Westwood Meadows, a quiet, leafy suburb of Boston that smelled of old money and fresh-cut grass. The silence was absolute, save for the gentle hum of the refrigerator. Alara was out for the afternoon, one of her self-care days she'd started taking. I slit the envelope open with my thumb, my mind completely blank, expecting a credit card offer or some other piece of sophisticated junk mail. Instead, I unfolded a single, crisp page. At the top, in bold letters, it read, "Overdue payment notice, home equity line of credit." My blood went cold. Not just cold, it felt like it evaporated, leaving an icy vacuum in my veins. My eyes scanned the numbers. Principal balance, $85,000. Amount past due, $2,147.18. The property listed as collateral was our address, my address. The home I had poured my life savings into, the down payment a monument to years of grinding away as a data analyst. It had to be a mistake, a clerical error, a very, very sophisticated scam. This was Alara, my Alara. The woman I'd met at a fundraiser, who had dazzled me with a smile that could disarm nations. The woman who claimed to be terrible with money, who always handed the bills to me with a helpless, charming shrug and said, "You're the numbers wizard, honey. I just make things pretty." I stumbled into my home office, the letter trembling in my hand. My heart was a frantic drum against my ribs. I pulled up our mortgage statement online. There it was. Our one and only mortgage, with our familiar local bank, paid on time, every month. No second mortgage, no line of credit. "You're panicking over nothing," a voice in my head reasoned. "It's fraud. Someone stole your identity." It was a comforting thought, a life raft in a churning sea of dread. I was about to call the fraud department when I saw it at the bottom of the letter from Blackwood Financial, a scanned copy of the final signature page. There, clear as day, were two signatures. One was a sloppy, unreadable scrawl. The other was mine, or a perfect, undeniable forgery of it. And right next to it was Alara's elegant, looping signature. I'd seen it on our marriage license on 1,000 birthday cards. I knew it better than my own. The air left my lungs in a painful rush. The room began to tilt. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a stranger. The signature wasn't a forgery to trick the bank. It was a forgery to trick me. When Alara breezed through the door 2 hours later, flushed from a yoga class and holding a green juice, my entire world had been hollowed out. I was sitting on the sofa, the letter on the coffee table between us like a dead thing. "Hey, honey," she chirped, leaning down to kiss me. I flinched, and her smile faltered for a fraction of a second. "Rough day? I just pointed at the letter." She picked it up, her brow furrowed in manufactured confusion. She read it, her eyes widening. "Oh my God," she whispered, her hand flying to her mouth. "What is this? What is this? Is this identity theft?" She was good. She was so good. The shock in her voice, the tremor in her hand, it was a masterclass performance. For a split second, the cognitive dissonance was so strong I almost believed her. My brain screamed at me, "The woman you love wouldn't do this." She is a victim, just like you. But my gut, the cold, hard knot of certainty in my stomach, knew better. I called the bank, Alara. I lied. My voice was flat, devoid of all emotion. They're sending over the full application packet, the one you signed in person last March, the one where you provided my social security number and a forged copy of my pay stub. Her face, for the first time since I'd met her, went completely blank. The mask of the charming, slightly ditzy wife fell away, and behind it was something I'd never seen before: cold, hard calculation. The air crackled, the silence stretched. Then the performance resumed, but it had changed. The shock was replaced with tears. Huge, glistening tears that rolled down her perfect cheeks. "How could you even think that?" she sobbed, her voice cracking. "Mark, you've been so stressed lately. You're not sleeping. You've been forgetting things. Don't you remember? We talked about this. We talked about getting a line of credit to do the kitchen renovation you wanted." The gaslighting was so audacious, so complete, it was almost breathtaking. She was trying to rewrite my own memory in real time. "We never talked about this, Alara," I said, my voice dangerously quiet. "The kitchen renovation was something you wanted. I said we couldn't afford it." "Oh, no, you were worried, but you agreed," she insisted, her voice rising with frantic energy. "She must have just forgotten. Mark, this is scaring me. I think your job is getting to you. Maybe you need to see someone. This paranoia, it's not healthy." She was trying to make me believe I was insane, that my own mind was betraying me. I looked at this woman, this stranger wearing my wife's face, and felt a profound, chilling sense of loss. The woman I had married was gone. Maybe she had never been there at all. That night she curled up on the far side of the bed, her back to me, her shoulders shaking with fake sobs. I didn't sleep. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of the $85,000 lie pressing down on me. But it wasn't just a lie, it was a violation. She had taken our sanctuary, our home, and used it as collateral for a secret life. The next day, while she was out for another self-care session, I did what I do best. I followed the data. I wasn't a detective, but I was a damn good analyst. I didn't need to break into her phone. The money trail would tell its own story. I logged into our joint accounts, the ones she never looked at. I started tracing the disbursements from the line of credit. It wasn't one big withdrawal. It was dozens of smaller ones, a slow, methodical bleed. $10,000 wired to an account under the name Robert Vogel. Her father, $5,000 to T. Susan Vogel, her mother. $15,000 to Vogel Home Improvements, LLC, a company registered to her brother, Kevin. A brother who had been unemployed for 2 years before suddenly starting a successful contracting business 6 months ago. I kept digging, my fingers flying across the keyboard, a cold fury building in my chest. I found credit cards I never knew existed, opened in my name. A Visa with a $20,000 limit maxed out. An Amex, used for lavish dinners in Boston, weekends at 5-star resorts in the Berkshires with her friends, designer bags from boutiques on Newbury Street. The total debt she had secretly accrued in my name against our assets was just shy of $250,000. And then I found the final piece, the one that made it all click into place. It was a series of emails in our shared family cloud storage, a folder she must have forgotten about. It was an exchange between her and her mother. "He's getting suspicious," Alara had written. "Honey, now, he asked about the kitchen again. I have to be more careful." Her mother's reply: "And just keep him happy, sweetie. You deserve these things. We deserve these things. He's a good provider, but he's too cautious. Sometimes you have to take what's yours. Your father and I are so proud of how you're taking care of us all. You're the real head of this family now." It wasn't a secret lover. It wasn't a gambling addiction. It was worse. It was a conspiracy. A calculated parasitic siphoning of my life to fund her family's lifestyle, to elevate her status in their eyes from the girl who married well to the powerful matriarch who provided for them all. She wasn't just lying to me. She was using my life as a prop in a play she was staging for her family. I wasn't her husband, I was her host, and the parasites were bleeding me dry. I sat back in my chair, the fluorescent hum of the monitor the only sound. The betrayal was so immense, so absolute, it was almost a physical presence in the room. I felt a strange calm wash over me. The grief, the shock, the confusion, it all coalesced into a single sharp point of clarity. Learned helplessness was a term I knew from psychology textbooks. It's when a subject, after repeated adverse events, becomes unwilling to avoid them, even when they have the power to do so. They just accept the pain. I had been living in that state for years. The constant "I don't know, honey, you handle it," the subtle manipulations, the way she made me feel responsible for her happiness. I had been conditioned to accept it. But the data doesn't lie. The numbers on the screen in front of me were the smelling salts that woke me up. She thought I was a numbers wizard. She thought my talent was just for making money. She had no idea my real talent was in finding patterns, in seeing the whole architecture of a system, especially a fraudulent one. And as I looked at the web of lies she had woven, I saw it not as a tragedy, but as a system waiting to be dismantled. She wanted to be the head of her family? The powerful benefactor? Fine. I was going to give her exactly what she wanted. I was going to put her on a stage, with her whole family in the audience. And I was going to make her the star of the show. The fog of love had finally burned away, and what was left was the cold, hard glint of steel. The next 3 weeks were an exercise in extreme self-control. I became the perfect husband, the loving, slightly oblivious, work-obsessed man she had so carefully cultivated. I apologized for being paranoid. I told her I'd found the mix-up with the bank and that it was all a misunderstanding. I even let her believe her gaslighting had worked. "See, honey," she'd said, stroking my hair, her voice dripping with condescending pity. "I told you that you were just overworked. You gave me such a scare." I just smiled and nodded, a coiled serpent of rage and purpose tightening in my gut. While she celebrated her victory with shopping sprees and long lunches with friends, I was meeting with a forensic accountant named David Chen. David was a small, quiet man with eyes that missed nothing. He was a predator who hunted in the tall grass of spreadsheets and bank ledgers. "This is brazen," David said, peering over his glasses at the mountain of evidence I'd compiled. "On the sheer gall of it, she built an entire shadow economy on your back. The Shell LLC for her brother, the wire transfers disguised as gifts. It's a work of art, in a sociopathic kind of way. Together, we mapped out every dollar. We documented every fraudulent signature, every lie, every transaction. Then, I took our findings to a divorce lawyer, a woman named Sarah, who had a reputation for being a shark in a Chanel suit. We can burn them to the ground," she said, a grim smile on her face after I'd laid out the whole story. "Fraud, dissipation of marital assets, identity theft. Mark, she won't get the house. She won't get a dime of alimony. In fact, she might be looking at criminal charges if you choose to press them." But I didn't want to just win in court. That was too clean, too impersonal. This was a family affair, and it required a family resolution. My revenge needed to be intimate. It needed to be delivered to the very people she was trying so desperately to impress. I needed to destroy the image she had built, because that image was her most prized possession. The plan was simple, and it was brutal. I told Alara I wanted to do something special for her family. "And you were right," I said, looking her straight in the eye with all the sincerity I could muster. "I'd been distant. I want to make it up to you and your parents. Let me host a big dinner for them. A celebration, for all you do for us." She lit up. For her, this was the ultimate validation. The provider husband finally paying tribute to the family she supported in secret. It was the climax of her little play. She spent a week planning the menu, buying a new dress, telling her parents and brother how I was finally appreciating them. The night of the dinner, our home looked beautiful. Alara had outdone herself. Candles flickered, the scent of roast beef filled the air, and expensive wine I didn't buy was being poured freely. Her father, Robert, clapped me on the back, his breath smelling of my money. "Ah, good to see you lightening up, Mark," he boomed. Her mother, Susan, gave me a thin, knowing smile. "Alara is a good influence on you," she said. "She knows how to live." Her brother, Kevin, leaned back in his chair, smug and self-satisfied, talking about the new truck he'd bought for his business. We made it through the appetizer and the main course. The conversation was a symphony of their perceived success and my wife's brilliance. I just smiled, nodded, and let my rage simmer to a perfect controlled boil. When the dessert plates were cleared, I stood up, tapping my glass for attention. "I just want to say a few words," I began, my voice steady. Alara beamed at me, her eyes shining with triumph. She thought this was her victory speech, delivered by her puppet. I want to thank you all for coming, and I especially want to honor my wife, Alara. I paused, letting the moment hang in the air. She is, without a doubt, the most ambitious woman I have ever met. She wanted to be a benefactor, a provider, a true matriarch for this family. And I'm here to tell you all, she succeeded. Confusion flickered across their faces. This wasn't the toast they were expecting. "On Robert, Susan," I said, turning to her parents, "I know things have been tough. But thanks to Alara's ingenuity, you were able to receive a gift of $15,000 over the past year. In fact, here's the wire transfer confirmation." I slid a piece of paper across the polished dining table. It was the statement from the secret line of credit. Her father stared at it, his face turning pale. "And Kevin," I continued, my voice like ice, "that contracting business of yours. It's a miracle. Unemployed for 2 years, and then, suddenly, a $15,000 cash injection to start an LLC, plus another $30,000 in operating capital. Truly inspirational." I slid another statement toward him. "You must be so proud, Alara." Alara was frozen, her face a mask of horror. The blood had drained from it completely. She looked like a marble statue. "And we can't forget the trips, the bags, the dinners," I said, my voice getting louder, harder. I started placing documents on the table like I was dealing a hand of poker. Credit card statements, loan agreements, $250,000 in debt, all of it in my name. All of it funneled, one way or another, into this fantasy life. I finally looked directly at Alara. The mask was gone. All that was left was raw, cornered panic. "What are you doing?" she whispered, her voice a thread. "I'm setting the record straight," I said, my voice dropping to a deadly calm. I let my gaze sweep across her family, who were now staring at her with a mixture of shock and dawning horror. They weren't looking at a benefactor. They were looking at a fraud, and they were her accomplices. "You didn't marry a provider," I told them. "You raised a thief, and you were all happy to cash the checks. The money she gave you, it wasn't hers to give. It was a loan she took out by forging my name on a second mortgage against this house. A loan that I have spent the last 3 weeks meticulously documenting for the state police and the IRS. That was the final blow." The mention of the IRS sent a visible shockwave through the room. Robert looked like he was going to be sick. Kevin had shrunk in his chair. "What is he talking about, Alara?" her mother shrieked, her voice shrill with panic. Alara just stared at me, her eyes filled with a terrifying combination of hatred and disbelief. She had been so sure of her power over me, so certain of my blissful ignorance. She never, in a million years, thought the quiet data analyst was capable of this. "You're lying," she finally hissed. I said, and I pulled out the final document. It was a copy of the divorce petition. "Sure, being served tomorrow morning. My lawyer has already filed a motion to freeze all your assets, which, since they were all acquired through fraud using my credit, means you have nothing. The car you drove here in? It'll be repossessed by Friday. The credit cards in your wallet have already been canceled. This house is mine. You have 24 hours to pack a bag and leave. And as for you all, my lawyer will be in touch about structuring a repayment plan for the money you accepted. If you refuse, we proceed with both civil and criminal charges. Enjoy the dessert." I turned and walked out of the dining room, leaving a nuclear bomb of silence and recrimination in my wake. I went upstairs, locked our bedroom door, and for the first time in months I breathed. The screams started a few minutes later. Accusations, denials. The sound of a family of parasites turning on each other now that the host was no longer providing. Alara left the next morning. She didn't say a word. She just gave me a look of pure, undiluted venom before getting into a cab with a single suitcase. Her family, of course, chose to save themselves. They cooperated fully, signing agreements to repay every last cent to avoid prosecution. They threw her under the bus without a second thought. The image she had spent $250,000 to build had been shattered in a single night. The aftermath was messy, but it was a cleansing fire. I sold the house. There were too many ghosts in those walls. I used the proceeds, and the money recovered from her family, to start over. I moved into a smaller, simpler apartment in the city, closer to my work. Sometimes I think about that final dinner. About the look on her face when her perfectly constructed world crumbled around her. It wasn't a look of remorse or sadness. It was a look of pure narcissistic injury, the rage of being exposed, of being outsmarted. I didn't just divorce her. I destroyed the very foundation of her identity. I held up a mirror and forced her and her entire family to see exactly what they were. And for a narcissist, there is no greater punishment. I'm alone now. But I'm not lonely. The silence in my apartment isn't the heavy, oppressive silence of a lie. It's the clean, quiet peace of the truth. I'm free. And in the end, that's a form of wealth you can't forge a signature to obtain.